In this video, I want to talk about ways that you can simplify your finances. The goal is to streamline and declutter your finances to make sure that you optimize them in a way that will ensure prosperity without a lot of complications. In this video, I am going to talk about the 5 key steps that you can take to simplify your finances, how you can achieve them, and why they're important. And then throughout the video, I am going to provide you with some helpful resources to help you achieve that. But first, here's a little bit about me. Hi, welcome to my channel. Thank you for watching. Here's a little bit about me. My household consists of myself, my husband, and my toddler. My mom also lives with us, but she's not included in our finances. We live in a high cost of living city in the Northeast. My husband and I both went to graduate school, but fortunately, we no longer have student loan debt. I work in banking and he works in aviation. I take care of the family's finances, and I love my role as the self-appointed CFO. I love to talk about all things money, whether it's investing, saving, or making money. I look forward to sharing a wealth building journey with you. I look forward to getting to know you, and I hope you enjoyed this video. The first step for you to simplify your finances is to set goals. Really, goals are the foundation that sustains all of your financial plans. There is a system called SMART goals. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant/realistic, and time-based. Setting goals is a very good way for you to be motivated and help guide your steps and trigger the behaviors that you need in order to achieve your objectives. In the description box, I am going to link a video that I made on setting up an investment policy statement, which is a document that you draft in order to make sure that you know what your objectives are when it comes to investing, as well as a goal setting video that I made late in December that is intended to set some very helpful personal finance goals throughout 2022. Next step is to consolidate your bank account. Channeling my inner Marie Kondo, I am going to ask you, does it spark joy? Of course, there's nothing wrong with having multiple bank accounts, but I have come across people who have had so many that it is very easy to lose track of them. The 2 main types of accounts that you need typically tends to be a checking account and a savings account. These are accounts at the bank. I'm not talking specifically about brokerage accounts or investment accounts, purely regular deposit accounts. I do see the value in having more than one type of account, as well as more than one of the different kinds of accounts. However, you don't need 5, 6, 7, or 10. I personally have been guilty of that myself. For example, I did have a habit of churning accounts. Over the years, as different banks were competing for deposits, I would open an account just so I can get the sign-up bonuses. However, there is a point where you do accumulate too many of them. So I think if you are on your wealth building journey and if you are on a path to simplifying your finances because you feel overwhelmed, it is best to try and take a minimalist approach to it. For starters, I think there should be 2 main types of checking accounts. The first one is an operating account. That is an account in which you conduct most, if not all, of your businesses, whether you're swiping your debit card, you're writing a check, or you're doing an ACH transfer. But we all know that financial institutions can have glitches, they can have issues, and you never want to be tied to just one place. So it might be helpful to have a backup account in case something happens with your first financial institution, so you are not locked out of all of your money. Next, for the savings account, I would recommend that you keep 2 as well. One would be a sinking fund type of account that is designed to meet your medium/moderate term goals. So not your day-to-day operations, because that's what your checking account is for, but really not necessarily your emergency fund as well. So for example, if you have a once-a-year expense, or you know you're going to be buying a car in the next 2 to 3 years, you might use that account as a medium-term account to keep that money while you accumulate it but at the same time, keeping it away from the temptation of having too much access to it through the checking account. And of course, another type of savings account that you need is always an emergency fund. Emergency funds are important to have. Some people keep their emergency funds in a high yield savings account. Some people will keep it in a no penalty CD. Personally, I keep most of my emergency fund with the Treasury through iBond investments. I made a video on that and I can link it in the description as well. But the point is that you need to have something that meets a minimum of 3, ideally 6 months of expenses in case you were either incapacitated or you lost your job. The reason why it's important to not have too many bank accounts is that you can lose track of them. If you have a bank account that is either linked to an account that has a recurring subscription and that's the only reason you use it, or if you have an account that you never use, you could find yourself in a position where the account goes dormant and it is turned over to the state. You might be in a position where you have some transaction on the account that either doesn't happen very often or that you don't keep track of, and you run the risk of running overdraft expenses, which tend to be pretty steep. So it's really not worth it. I have a personal example of that. The reason why I always advise people to keep track of their accounts and not keep too many accounts is because when I was in high school, I opened a bank account that had a monthly fee. The monthly fee was $3 if you kept your account above a certain amount. Well, as a high school student, I did not have a lot of money. It was very often that I was flirting with the line of that limit. One day, I simply forgot that I had that account, and they subsequently deducted the monthly fee every month for a very long time until my account went into zero and they eventually just closed it. The next step to simplifying your finances is to automate your savings. At the risk of sounding like an infomercial, I will say set it and forget it. Your retirement accounts, some of them are much easier to automate than others. For example, if you have a 401k and you contribute to your retirement account at work, those can only come through payroll, so your employer is going to take that money automatically every paycheck until you tell them otherwise. Another option is if you have an IRA, you can also link your IRA to either your checking account or your savings account, where you can set up automatic transfers that correspond with the IRS limit. For 2022, if you are under the age of 50, the IRS limit for IRA contributions is $6,000. So over the course of 12 months, you can set up an automatic transfer of $500 every month until you reach the maximum. And of course, you have bank-to-bank transfers where you can do automatic transfers in between your checking and your savings account, either to fund your sinking funds or to get your emergency fund to where it needs to be if you're not quite there yet. The reason why it's important to automate your savings is that if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. If you have to go every month and actively make the transfer, you might get busy or you might simply forget. Or you might not be willing to make the transfer because you see the money in your checking account, you want to spend it. Whereas if you make the transfer automatically, if you don't see that money coming in, and if you did not see that balance, you can't miss what you never had. The next step is to consolidate your debt. The idea of this is to protect your credit through vigilance. Whether you have credit cards or unsecured personal and student loans, consolidating your debt means that you are less likely to forget that you have a particular credit card or a particular personal loan. Maybe it's a small amount, maybe it's a loan that you didn't realize that you had, maybe you moved and you forgot to notify that one servicer of your new address. You don't want to miss out. So really, if you have the ability to consolidate your debt, ideally you're going to get a better rate. That's usually a reason why people will do that through refinancing. You put yourself in a position where you have fewer things to keep track of, and you have fewer things that you can forget. You don't have a situation where you're going to end up having missed payments or late fees. A good way for you to know what debts you have really is to check your credit report, because sometimes your creditors don't have your most recent home address or mailing address, if you've moved and you've forgotten to notify them, you want to be able to check your credit report and make sure that if there are any debts that either aren't yours, that you dispute them, but if they are yours, so you are aware of them and they are not in a position where they become delinquent and put a negative mark on your credit report. I am also going to link a video in the description box that talks about checking your credit and how you can do that. If you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit the like button so the algorithm knows that it's good, and of course subscribe for more content. If you think any of the information that I provide here might be helpful to somebody else, be sure to share it with them. And finally, you want to optimize your investments. The idea is to streamline your investment portfolio. We talked about your checking and your savings. We talked about your retirement accounts, but what about your investments themselves? How do you streamline that? These are different types of accounts, and you have to have a strategy that aligns with the nature of these accounts and the specific goals that you have for them. My recommendation to you would be to invest in index funds and to avoid active trading. The reason for that is by investing in index funds, you are in a position where you are diversified. Having 15 tech stocks in your portfolio is not diversification. When you do either a total stock market index fund or a world stock market index fund, you are buying the entire market, and yet you only have one security that you have to keep track of, whether it is an ETF or a mutual fund. Also, avoid active trading. I have had some trades in the past year or so because I had to do some workarounds and move some things around in my investment account. And as a result, I ended up getting a bunch of 1099s from my brokers that are several pages long, that have a ton of securities on them because I had to do some trades. And I'm not really an active trader, and I can imagine those people who are actively trading, what their accounts look like, especially if they have a lot of short-term trades or if they have a mix of short-term trades and long-term investments. People who actively trade, they have a lot of things to keep track of for tax purposes. It is simply not worth the level of effort given the potential downsides of either losing a lot of money by taking huge gambles on risky investments, or really just the marginal amount of profit that you could potentially make given the amount of work and tracking that goes into it. And another way for you to optimize your investment is really to declutter them. And here I am going to break down some steps you can take to declutter your investments. The first step is to do a full inventory of all of your stocks along with the gains and losses. At that point, you're going to determine which stocks you want to keep and which stocks you want to sell. No one can really tell you that. It is a combination of your investment philosophy and your belief in the direction that the company is going in. Ideally, you would be in a situation where you're mostly invested in index funds or you are shifting to index funds. It's up to you. But there are different approaches that you can take, and then there are different factors that drive that decision. And then finally, you're going to want to have a sales strategy for taxable accounts. The reason for that is because you get taxed on your profits when you sell your stocks. So you want to put yourself in a position where if you have the intent of getting rid of some stocks that are profitable, if there are any stocks that are also not profitable and you decide that you no longer want to invest in them, you're going to want to match them. That way, that reduces your profits a little bit, and that will align with your tax needs. If you're in a position where hopefully this is where you are, where either your gains are outweighing your losses, or you mostly have gains, which is fantastic, but you still decide that, hey, I made out well, but I want to shift to a different strategy, or I want to shift to index fund investing, perhaps what you might consider doing is doing a gradual divestment out of those securities in order to control your tax bill. You may not want to go out and sell off your entire portfolio at once if you have a huge gain, because you might be in a position where you have a huge tax bill at the end of it. Also, you have to keep track of timing. In a situation where you have long-term capital gains and you are at the long-term capital gains tax rate, which is a much more favorable tax rate, you may want to sell those first and wait for other securities to mature, because you don't want to be in a position where if you're taxed at your ordinary income because you have held your investments for less than a year. I also have some resources on how to optimize your investments. I am going to link them in the description box, but some of the videos include avoiding some IRA traps, Merrill Edge guided investing. I know that not everybody uses Merrill Edge. I know that Vanguard is very popular in the personal finance community, particularly if you are on a financial independence track. But I use Merrill Edge as a Bank of America customer, and as a result, I thought that I would share my perspective and my experience with them. So if you think that video might be useful to you, or if you want to explore an alternative to the big three discount brokerages that are often discussed, which tend to be either Charles Schwab, Fidelity, or Vanguard, I think this is a fine option to consider as well. I also have a video on optimizing your 401k, and I think this one is super important, which is knowing your investment risk tolerance, because I feel like a lot of new investors or a lot of young people go in with a certain mindset thinking that they're just going to go in and trade, but then when things start turning sideways, they either panic sell or they get distraught because they didn't really invest in a way that matches their temperament. So I made a video that covers that. So if you want to check it out, that might help you out when it comes to knowing your risk tolerance and knowing the ways that you're going to optimize your portfolio that matches your personal investment goals as well as your strategy. Of course, I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I want to hear from you. Let me know if there is anything else that you think you can do to optimize and simplify your finances. And I want to know about you and your journey. What improvements have you made to your personal finances to make sure that you keep them as simple as possible? And of course, if there's anything on this list that you think will help your journey, please let me know as well. I would like to continue sharing my thoughts on all things money with you. So I would appreciate it if you could help out the channel by liking this video and sharing it with anyone you think might benefit from it. If you want to see more content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can know when new videos come out. I'll see you in the next one.